Nintendo has announced a new book called Playing with Power Nintendo NES Classics. And you know that company Prima, they do the strategy guides.
Yes.
They're still around. I guess they must still sell them because they're one of the few strategy guide makers around.
The few times I go into GameStop, they're always pushing them with new releases.
Mm-hmm. So this is going to come out about the same time as the NES Classic Edition. I think roughly the same time. November 18th. You can pre-order on Amazon. Playing with Power Nintendo NES Classics. The book looks like a Nintendo cartridge, which is pretty cool. And it's going to come with a slipcase, an embossed slipcase, like it's a game, like a giant game, which is a pretty cool idea. It's going to be over 300 pages. It's going to cover a retrospective of 17 NES Classics, which, if you count the games on the NES Classic Edition, there's about 17 first-party titles. So you'd think that those are going to be the same ones to sort of tie in with the NES Classic Edition. Makes sense. Interviews and commentary from Nintendo visionaries who pioneered the era of gaming. See, that's what's cool to me. Because anyone can come out with an NES book, but are you actually going to get like Miyamoto to sit down and do an interview and have it all nice, or anyone else at Nintendo? Hell, some of these people probably either no one's interviewing, or who knows who worked on some of these games like 30 years ago. Maybe some artists get their work in there. And there's going to be advertising and excerpts from Nintendo Power magazine back issues. That to me is super cool. Just because from time to time people ask me, "Hey Pat, why doesn't someone come out with a book of like stuff from old Nintendo Powers?" Well, copyright. That's why you can't really do it. You can't just reprint old Nintendo Power magazines.
Right.
You
can't just lift it directly, as we talked. Well, actually, we didn't. But as certain things have been canceled, it's not transformative enough.
And so, showcase of vintage advertising and priceless excerpts from Nintendo Power magazine back issues, and then hand-drawn maps.
Yeah, see, that's something
character
that
and game
really...
environment art and much more. So if you have someone that gets The Legend of Zelda, like the original, like drawn like sprites, that would be fucking priceless to see that in a book.
It's all the supplemental material that really entices me. And I normally don't buy big coffee table books, but this is actually something that I might buy.
So it's Prima Games. It's going to come out 320 pages, November 18th. So it's very interesting. And now you kind of know why. We didn't speak about this before, about the NES Visual Compendium, which got temporarily shut down by Nintendo on Kickstarter for a couple of weeks and then brought back. They actually allowed it to finish.
Oh, really?
It got funded, I want to say, probably at least $250,000 it got funded.
I had no idea they allowed
So
it to
basically,
finish.
Didn't want to speak at the time just because, well, I got a book, didn't feel like, wasn't wishing ill will on the book, just that there were differences between that book and mine. But Nintendo came out against that book originally. Now you kind of know why. Because they have their own book coming out, which is going to do something probably similar in a lot of respects, at least for the first party titles. So, because the NES Visual Compendium is being put out, that's covering I think roughly 100 games, not just Nintendo first party, but obviously you have to include Nintendo first party games if you're doing a book about the NES, because that's a chunk of the most famous games. So that book was heavily visual and with a little bit of text, and Nintendo basically said, it's not enough fair use for us. Plus, in advertising, they were using the seal of quality,
right?
Which really turned Nintendo off. And so you can understand Nintendo didn't want to be confused in the marketplace with their own book coming out. And if you look at Nintendo's book, on the cover, they have a seal of quality on theirs. So they worked it out, though. Thankfully, Nintendo worked it out with the people doing the NES Visual Compendium. And so people will be able to get all these books. So I don't think Nintendo was being too much of an asshole. They want to make sure that, they don't want confusion in the marketplace. I mean, that's one of the things with copyright and trademark, is that you don't want someone to get away with selling a product that they think is the official one. And it's like, that's not good. See, this can't be confused with Nintendo's book or the Visual Compendium, because this is covering all 800 games. And this is a book Nintendo would never ever put out. Because why would Nintendo put out a book reviewing, I don't know, Lethal Weapon on the NES? I don't think they'd ever do that.
A certain book can never be confused with a normal book.
Especially due to the weight on it. So this is exciting. I'll probably get this book. It's for pre-sale right now. Looks like $27. Oh wow! But the list price is $45. So, is there anything you want to see in particular? Any old art from, like, I don't know, like Kid Icarus seeing originally drawn maps?
Yeah, I want to see that.
Items?
I want to see Zelda 2 maps more than anything.
Oh, that could be on here.
Yeah,
I wonder if they're gonna.
I really want to see.
I wonder if they're gonna just stick with art from the 17 games that are probably featured on the NES Classic Edition here, or kind of veer off. I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
But basically this is a tie-in product. They're calling it a veritable love letter to Nintendo fans.
God, I hate that term, love letter. It's used so often.
I just think it's funny that there was nothing. All of a sudden, we want to cover the NES with two products. It just seems weird to me.
It is.